But as time went on, as the community settled, they started to form very distinct neighborhoods and very distinct businesses and black-owned businesses and so on and so forth, all over the United States in many different cities. As blacks spread to the north, there were periods of tremendous problems, like for example in Chicago in 1919, and I think your book probably even talks about this, but here's the story. You have a huge African American movement into the south side of Chicago, and the city of Chicago took it upon itself to prevent blacks and whites from mixing, and they had a black beach and a white beach. If you know the city of Chicago, it's located on Lake Michigan. A black beach and a white beach. And what happens is as a black teenage boy, about age 14, is out swimming and he drifts over into the white section of the beach. Well, what happens? The whites, not all of them, but a significant number of them, throw stones at this kid, enough stones at this kid so that the kid actually drowns. And you guys throw a lot of stones to like knock this kid out, and that's what happens. As a result, African Americans go out, get very frustrated with that, and there are some in the African American community that go out and try to fight back against what they see as an injustice because the police didn't really do anything about this. And so you have two examples. You even have in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, and I'm sorry that's in blue for some reason. In that city, African Americans had created a very prosperous section of the city with black-owned businesses, and white people were sick of it. Some white people got together and basically tried to burn down entire sections of the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. But these are just stories of, in the 1920s, how race relations, aren't going away. They're still there. Don't think for a minute that after the Civil War that we've gotten rid of anti-racism. I mean, if anything, we still have lots and lots of racist attitudes. It's in the North, it's in the South, it's very much everywhere, okay? And that's one thing to really remember and understand about the 20s is that, as society becomes more diverse, that's what causes, in a lot of ways, some good things, but also a lot of tension. I am so sorry, that should say the new Negro definition and examples. And what's starting to happen is as black folks start to come up north and to the west and in the central part of the United States, there's a sense that they've done a lot better. And this whole idea that we're not going to be bullied around like we've been bullied in the South, okay? The lynchings of the past, the problems of the past are going to be, while not perfect, there's going to be this idea that we're not scared to have our own culture. We have a rich culture, we have a deep culture, and our culture is strong. We're musical, we are literate, we are not slaves, for example. That's not who we are anymore, okay? And so in the 20s, this whole idea called the new Negro really starts to take off. Let me give you an example of this type of thinking. Let's talk about Marcus Garvey for a minute. Marcus Garvey is one of the foremost guys back in the day who really wanted to promote black self-reliance and rights for African Americans. As you can see, he established a group called the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and this organization was basically kind of like the NAACP, but not totally. And the difference is that this association wanted to basically believe very much in two things. Number one, pride, black pride. This whole idea that black folks come from a race or a culture of tremendous, what can you say, tremendous heritage. Be proud of who you are. Celebrate who you are. Okay? Also, another key component of this was he was a big advocate of racial segregation. That he didn't think it was necessarily possible for blacks to integrate with whites, because what would always happen is white people would always look for a way to push blacks down. Until the only way to be self-sufficient is to promote from within and to create strong communities from within. Now, it's totally cool. A couple weeks ago, just on this note, and this is kind of going along the lines, if you've ever studied Black history, Booker T. Washington is another guy that comes to mind back in the late 1800s that kind of has these ideas as well. And it's really cool. Me and my family went 2 weeks ago now to a place called Allensworth. You guys ever heard of it? Allensworth is located on 99, Highway 99 south. It's about a half an hour north of Bakersfield, so it takes about an hour and a half to drive there from Fresno. And it's the first all-black colony set up in California, or for that matter, the West Coast. And it was set up in 1908 by Colonel Allensworth. He was a guy who served in the Civil War. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to create an all African American community where it was just going to be a self-sufficient black community, black-owned businesses, black homeowners. They even wanted, the ultimate goal was to establish a black college on the West Coast. And it lasted for quite a while. Not long enough. It actually ended in about 1920. So it only lasted like 12 years. They had water problems. It's out in the middle of nowhere. But today they made it a state historical park, and I took my kids and stuff. And it's a story that not a lot of people know about. I wish I would have put the pictures in here, but it's really awesome. But it's kind of this idea of self-sufficiency, even to the point where Marcus Garvey actually was part of a larger movement that not only advocated black superiority and segregating races, but also believed that Africans should return back to Africa. He actually chartered a couple of ships in order to do that. And he actually didn't get very far. He was actually eventually arrested, and they were not able to actually take Africans beginning to take them back to Africa. So, but he's just an example of, like, when you think about people like Malcolm X, that advocated for in some ways segregation. This is where it kind of comes back to. So there's this trend in the African American community to want to segregate, because that would give people strength instead of integration, trying to play on the same level as white folks. Would Martin Luther King believe in this sort of thing? What do you think? No, because he was all about integration, right? So there's just different, there's just different ways of looking at things. And so this is just an example. All right, so diversity is increasing. The Ku Klux Klan is becoming more and more prominent in the 1920s. As you guys saw in the video, the Ku Klux Klan saw a tremendous increase in power. By 1925, they had grown to about 4 million. Tremendous amount of growth. The Ku Klux Klan, a lot of people make the mistake, they were not just anti-African American, but they were anti-everybody, This was kind of like an American, not an American, I guess you could say an American religion. Like in the video we saw, you might have seen one of the initiation ceremonies where they're carrying around a United States flag, and they're kind of like knighting people. And what they're trying to do is, what they were trying to do, I think they were thinking this is Ku Klux Klan. I mean, were they thinking? Well, they were thinking something. But they were thinking that we were promoting an American set of values, an American set of ways of being, that is not African American, that is not immigrant, and so on and so forth. Just going to click on, and they were also very much anti-women's suffrage. This is a group that really was part of that. And they were just against everything. They were even against alcohol, for crying out loud. It's like, what are they for? The Ku Klux Klan spoke to conservatives, especially in the South, and not even in the South, just in the South, but conservatives all over the place that were very worried about where America was going. The 1920s is a time where there's immigration, there's African Americans speaking up for their rights. This is a reaction against all of that. Okay, so in a lot of ways, the Ku Klux Klan was promoting racism, but they were also promoting morality. If you want to, in their version of morality, okay? I don't know what you think about this. Is it moral to hate people? Is it moral to be against alcohol? I guess that's moral. Is it moral to be against women's suffrage, to think women shouldn't have the right to vote? They should basically stay in the house and have a chain long enough from the kitchen to the bedroom. You know what I mean? So basically, that's kind of what the Ku Klux Klan was all about. This is kind of a humorous look at the Ku Klux Klan. Daddy swiped our last clean bed sheet and joined the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. Anyways, other stuff that came up in the video, the monkey trial. The battle between evolution and creationism, the battle between tradition and modernity, the battle between Darwin and God. As if they're that different. I don't know. But there were, and this is people in the South, very conservative. If you remember the context of the trial, you have a guy in Tennessee named John Scopes who is accused of teaching and convicted of teaching evolution in a biology classroom. Now, I don't know. Do you guys take biology? Do they teach evolution in biology? Now, do they teach evolution as a scientific fact? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty. And anybody who's reasonable would say, okay, yeah, there's evolution that exists. I mean, there's adaptations, there's changes that happens and stuff. But back then, for John Scopes to teach in Tennessee, which is a very conservative place, to actually get up in front of his class and start touting evolution as a scientific fact, was really rocking the boat, and that's why he was put on trial. It might seem crazy to us, but hey, it's the 20s and it's the South, and often in places like that, which are very conservative, you're going to have issues like that. These are just some funny pictures, I guess. For whatever reason, I put them in there. Europe is amazed by the Scopes case because they're like, seriously? You Americans are a bunch of nutcases. I'm telling you. You're debating this? And it created and it was in Dayton, Tennessee, very small town. There was kind of a circus-like atmosphere. They had chimpanzees running around. They had guys preaching that you should read your Bible. It became a big kind of carnival atmosphere, I guess you could say. In the end, John T. Scopes, and there he is right there. Look at that guy. Just an innocent biology teacher. Oh my gosh, he looks like me. Just an innocent person, just doing his job. He eventually was fined $50 for teaching biology, which was probably about like maybe a month's wages right there. So think about that for a minute. Eventually, the judge overthrew his conviction based on a technicality. There was some evidence in the trial that wasn't necessarily true.